Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Week 7 prep rally from a very cloudy, overcast Cambridge High School. Site of the big game this week between the Marshall Cardinals and the Cambridge Blue Jays. We'll get to that one in a minute, but alongside Dennis Semrau and Jason Galloway, I'm Rob Hernandez. We've got to look first, guys, back at Week 6 and some huge outcomes that really, I think, threw some conference races for loops. Let's start first, Dennis, with the Badger North. DeForest gets the win over Mount Horeb-Barneveld. It is starting to seem like 2013 all over again. That scramble for the conference title now all of a sudden has to go through Reedsburg.
Yes, I saw DeForest Week 1, 14-7 win over Fort Atkinson. They are a different team now. Hunter Wilson, their quarterback, was switched back to defensive back where he's an all-conference back. He's a 3-year starter there. And Connor True, who he said hadn't played, he told me yesterday he hadn't played defensive back since his freshman year. He's back at quarterback, and Coach Mike Minnick said both kids are just more comfortable. It solidified the defense and the offense. And last week I talked to you during the prep rally, said this is one game to watch, and that was particularly because of that change. Jaden Sackman has just had an outstanding year running the ball, and they've got a great offensive line. Mount Horeb-Barneveld, though, this week at Reedsburg, boy, they're going to be, talk about a bounce-back team, but that was the first team to shut them down this year, was that great DeForest defense.
And we'll get to that big matchup in a minute. Jason Galloway, if I were to rank the upsets or the surprising outcomes last week, number 2 on my list is Janesville-Craig Sun Prairie. I think everyone thought Sun Prairie, after the win over Middleton, might be back, might be on its way towards bigger and better things. Janesville-Craig obviously had other ideas.
Yeah, this is the first time Craig really had a chance to prove itself, prove to everyone else in the conference how good they are. They had kind of an easier schedule at the beginning of the year. Then they played La Follette, who was missing their star in Khalil Kopis. Now they play a Sun Prairie team who's won the last 2 conference titles, and they came out and just proved that they're contenders and kind of surprised everybody. I think you had to go forward looking and saying, this is a team that really could finish atop of the Big 8.
And Dennis, quickly, Milton knocking off Stoughton. Not the fact that Milton won that ball game. We thought it was a toss-up, but again, Milton's defense, a 14-0 winner. They pitched the shutout, and now they step out of conference play and they get to close with Oregon and MG. So obviously the road ahead is big, but the win last week for Milton, a big statement.
Well, definitely. It goes back to last year, that last game of the year against Monona Grove, where they lost. Then they come to the playoffs, and they lost again, but they built off that. They are definitely a contender for the title, and Monona Grove's going to have their hands full. This week it's Portage, and like the coaches say, one at a time. And if you see the video we have on there with a very animated Bill O'Leary, who's the best team in the conference? Portage. You got to look one at a time, take care of business, get back, and finish strong.
Well, it takes us to this week in Week 7. We'll start. We'll stay in the Badger Conference, Dennis, and look at the game you'll be at this week with Reedsburg, Mount Horeb-Barneveld. Again, we're going to have a steady diet of big games in the Badger North to decide things, but this one seems to be the biggest because right now somebody has to beat the Beavers.
Yeah, when was the last time Wanakee DeForest wasn't the biggest game of the week, which is happening this week? I think it is a bounce-back game, first of all, for Mount Horeb-Barneveld. Second of all, Reedsburg is a strong team with that bone, but if they get behind, as they saw when they played Monona Grove, it's difficult for them to pass. So the whole key for Monona Grove would be to get that quick strike offense going again and to be able to limit that bone and keep that offense off the field for Reedsburg.
Jason Galloway, Badger, or the Big 8 Conference this week will play on Thursday night, so an earlier start, but still a couple big games to talk about. I guess the one in particular, Middleton-Madison West. The Regents continue to impress. The Middleton Cardinals, after their slip-up against Sun Prairie, bounce back. What do you see out of that ball game on Thursday?
It'll be an interesting one. Great bounce back by Middleton, getting up early on Memorial this week and clinching their playoff spot. And when you look at West, they've got one more win to clinch the playoffs, but they've got Middleton this week. They got Craig next week, and then before they finish up with Parker in Week 9. So they're not going to want to leave things to chance in that Week 9. They're going to come out really gunning for this game. And West has proven they've got one of the more talented teams in the Big 8 in terms of from the quarterback and skill positions particularly, and they have the talent to hang with Middleton.
The other big game, La Follette at Verona, it looked as though my box score showed Khalil Kopis back in it last week, so that's a good news for the Lancers. But, Craig, La Follette, Middleton, and don't count out Sun Prairie and Madison West. Nobody can afford to slip up. How big a game for the Lancers?
Oh, huge game for them. I mean, this is a completely different offense when Kopis is in there. They were actually leading Middleton 7-0 when Copus went out a few weeks ago, and that was their one loss on the season. They might look back on that and think, maybe we could be undefeated right now and alone at the top, but it's we're never going to know what would have happened in that game if he didn't get injured. But they still control their own destiny, and if they can get a win this week, if they're 2 wins away from at least sharing the conference title.
All right, Dennis, Capital Conference here at Cambridge Friday night. The Marshall Cardinals against the Cambridge Blue Jays, a big ball game. The first of 2 in a row for Marshall. They've got Waterloo on the schedule next week, but like you say, one at a time, and always a great rivalry here, Cambridge and Marshall.
Well, the last 3 weeks are going to decide this title. We've got Marshall here, and then next week it's Marshall at Waterloo, and then Waterloo comes to Cambridge for the last week. Cambridge had 10 starters back on both sides of the ball. John Gerlewski, the quarterback, a 3-year starter. They've played well. They've only lost 1 non-conference game, but Marshall, they had their streak snapped last year, 7 conference titles in a row. Nuglaris Monticello snapped it. They got even last week when they played, and tied to Forrest right now, arguably one of the best players in the area, if not the state, at quarterback and at middle linebacker. He definitely drives Marshall's offense and defense.
So that's the big game here in the Capital Conference. Around the area, a number of big games. The one that really stands out in the SWAL, the one that will probably decide the conference title, an afternoon game in Darlington, where the Cuba City Cubans take on the Darlington Redbirds in a 3:30 start. That game between 2 conference unbeatens should be quite a ball game, and we'll have live coverage on our live blog on wisconsinprepzone.com. Other games to look at, looking at the Rock Valley Conference, the short season there with the 5 conference games. I believe, Dennis, what we have, McFarland still atop the conference.
Still atop the conference, yes. That's one that's going to go right down to the end.
And then in the Six Rivers Conference on Saturday, Blackhawk celebrates their homecoming against Peck Argyle. Guys, we talked about it last week, the injury to the quarterback for Peck Argyle, but then they come out and they beat Cassville in their one of their 2 homecoming games. So Drew Schlem, his teammates picked him up and got him the win. Now they see if they can take on the Blackhawk Warriors. And the Blackhawk Warriors last week stumbled for the first time in conference play, losing to Potosi. So a lot riding on that game down at South Wayne between Peck Argyle and Blackhawk. And, of course, we'll have all the action on Wisconsin Prep Zone on our live blog Friday night, Thursday night for the Big 8, Friday night for the most of the games in the area. And we'll keep it up and running on Saturday for that big game between Peck Argyle and Blackhawk. And you can catch that here on wisconsinprepzone.com. And, of course, these 2 guys will join me on Friday noon for our live chat as we look ahead to all the big ball games in Week 7 here of the high school football season. Just 3 more weeks to go before we hit the playoffs, and a lot of big games and a lot of conference races yet to be decided. We'll break those down on Friday, noon to 1, right here on wisconsinprepzone.com. For Dennis Semrau and Jason Galloway, I'm Rob Hernandez. Thanks for watching the Week 7 Prep Rally. We'll see you at the stadium.